Okay, Greg Pickel, the 100th meeting between Penn State and Pittsburgh, just days away. Days away. It's already hot out. I think it's going to be a nice day Saturday at noon.
Yeah.
Traffic and travel should be amazing for the fan base. But just your thoughts on James Franklin's recently concluded news conference. Let's just start with the fact that James, even though this is the last meeting that's scheduled and there's not really any foreseeable spot for this game in the future schedule, James Franklin can see it continuing at some point. But interestingly enough, he mentioned it as a neutral site game. Did that surprise you?
No, not really, because if they ever want to play this game again, I can't foresee it being a 1-1, one home, one away, or like this series, 2 home, 2 away.
Right.
Unless the ACC goes to 9 conference games or the Big Ten reverts to 8 conference games. That was pretty much the first thing he brought up, was that fact makes it challenging. And Penn State's scheduled out with Power 5 opponents until 2026. So at the earliest, maybe I'll pop back on the schedule in 2026 or 2027. And I just don't know if you can schedule them 2 years in a row. So it makes sense. I don't know exactly where the neutral site would make sense, Bob, but
it won't be Altoona, we learned that.
Yes, and it won't be St. Francis. I don't think it's going to be Hershey. So we'll have to start looking for some other venues.
Man, Dave Jones will be in his 70s when they resume this series. Can you imagine Dave Jones in the press box trying to cover a Penn State Pitt game in 2027?
It'll be in Downingtown.
One thing I thought that's fascinating, because he's alluded to it a couple of times. He said it after the game. He was asked about it today. He is determined to get this team to be able to adjust quicker in game, almost between series on offense and defense, not just at halftime. And then he elaborated on it. We talked about it in one of our videos earlier about, I said, well, is that kind of a shot at his coaching staff not being able to do it quickly? But it's really not that. It's more of a process that involves a couple of things.
Yeah, it starts with the players on the field and what they tell the coaches when they come off of the field. And I guess it's hard to remember at times, but so many young guys are on this team. It's tough to sit over on the bench there behind us when you got the Jumbotron, the crowd singing, the defense doing whatever it's doing, or the offense, whatever the unit happens to be on the sideline. And there's a lot of stuff going on for especially younger players without as much experience, to stop and focus on what the coaches are telling them, what information the coaches need. So it sounds to me that it's probably a good thing for Penn State, because it's fixable. It seems like more a communication problem than an execution problem.
Yeah, so it's accurate info from the players. It has to match up with what the coaches are seeing. They have to quickly kind of react to it, and then the players have to digest it quickly, and that's been a challenge early this season with a young team. But it sounds like it's a real point of emphasis for James moving forward. Something to watch for this week in terms of adjustments when Pitt plays Penn State. As for the game itself, 2 things I wanted to ask you about. James thinks that the Pitt defense's secondary, the corners and the safeties, their aggressive approach, maybe pressing Penn State's wideouts, who's going to win that battle. He thinks that's one of the keys to the game.
Yeah, and it certainly is. The other one to me, Bob, would be just how does Penn State handle what? So it's a little bit of a different look on offense for Pitt with Mark Whipple there now.
Yeah.
Not Matt Canada. But you can bet that they're going to try and still do some of the shifts, the twists, the things at the line of scrimmage that have stymied Penn State at times over the last few years. So, yeah, and when it comes to Penn State's receivers, I think it's about what it's always been about, and that's separation. It's not always been a guarantee for this Penn State offense.
John Patricia did not have really a big career at Penn State, but he is a key player in James Franklin's mind this week. He transferred to Pittsburgh, I think, in the summer, and that caused James Franklin and his staff to react, because he thinks it's important as far as Penn State's signaling. He knows that Johnny Patrician knew all of Penn State's defensive signals, so they acted quickly, and they've changed everything, and they did it right away.
Yeah, they changed their signals on offense and on defense, and I have to think they'll probably roll out a few other new things as well, because John Patrician knows the ins and outs of how this program works.
And real quick, I forgot this, just don't be surprised, James Franklin alluded to it again, but he's not going to talk about it. For depth concerns, he's moved some players around this week. I think on the defensive side, he was what he was getting at. I don't know if we'll see it, but don't be surprised if you see a couple people in different positions on Saturday.